So we were talking about how, how everyone has a spirit animal.
Mm-hmm.
Heather was saying, what is your spirit medication? If there's a medication out there or a medicine that you are that's your spirit animal, what would it be?
Like ibuprofen?
And like maybe. So Heather,
I'm a strong Pepto-Bismol.
Heather said she's Pepto-Bismol.
Yes.
What would you think I would be?
The thing that helps you sleep, melatonin, because you're calming. Right?
I'm offended by that.
I could get on.
What do you want to be?
Melatonin?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so.
You're a CBD gummy. Do you want to be a little
what
gummy?
Do you think Grayson
maybe a
would be?
Benadryl? Oh, for me?
Benadryl's not nice.
What do you think I am?
Oh, honey.
Like a pre-workout, maybe?
Yeah, a little. Yeah, that's a medicine, right?
I like that.
A little muscle milk.
Muscle milk.
Yeah.
Muscle milk is not a medication.
I know.
It's kind of interesting to think about because I think you give yourself one answer and someone else would give a different answer. But Heather said she was Pepto-Bismol, and I see Heather as more of like, what's that thing you take for energy? Like coffee. You're kind of like.
I couldn't even tell you what Pepto-Bismol is. So.
Oh, my darling. It's when you have an upset tummy.
All right, so
and it's pink.
We want to talk about today what is called the BI quadrant of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad 4 quadrants. There's 4 quadrants. Basically, what this means is there's 4 ways you can make money in your life. 2 ways are earning the money, and then 2 ways are getting it from investments. So the first way is through earned income when you're an employee for someone. And the other way would be as if you own a business.
Mm-hmm.
Some people start a business and they're like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to start a business. And basically they own a job for their whole lives.
Yeah.
Do you think, what's an example of that?
Well, you might
An example of owning.
Well, yeah, what's an example of somebody who owns their own business, but they work super hard in that business?
Well, my girlfriend's dad, Chad Roy, he owns 2 businesses called Harbor Greens in the Pacific Northwest.
What's that?
They're grocery stores in the Pacific Northwest, and he owns the business, and he can take some time off sometimes. But when it's usually Monday to Friday, and when he's not taking time off, it's like he's in there and he's grinding. He's moving produce around. He's carrying equipment and things like that. And he started the business thinking like he worked in a grocery store. He started the business thinking that he's going to take a lot more time off and he's going to start this business. It's going to be more passive than active, but he actually enjoys the work day to day. So it's a little different. He likes to go in and get in the nitty gritty, which is kind of the opposite for me. But
and that's a great example because a grocery store, if you're not on that as a business owner, that could get messy real quick. If customers aren't happy, if you're not supplying the store, if you had some bad management, there's some big grocery franchises that really make it a corporate thing, but if you own a kind of small town grocery store, I can imagine that's a ton of work.
Yeah, there's a lot of variables that go into it.
And everything falls back on him. All the pressure.
Always.
Yeah.
My sister owns a flower shop,
mm-hmm.
and it's actually a great business. She bought it as an existing business. It's probably been in the town that it's in for 50 years. She's the number one shop in town. But you can imagine Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, she makes 50% of her revenue for the whole year in a couple of weeks a month.
That's crazy.
And it's chaos.
Yep.
Right, so she the business does well for her, but it's a job. She can't retire and let the business pay for itself. She needs to be there, and she needs to run it.
Would you say that's self-employed or is that business owner?
Yeah,
that's both.
That's a little bit of both, but her income is really driven by running that business. Yeah. So if she stepped off, it's hard on a business like that to just leave. There's also insurance agencies. You can own an insurance agency.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what you do is if you own an insurance agency, you own a job because you buy a book of business that might be a couple hundred clients, and then you have to service those clients. Heather, your first job was at the dry cleaners, right?
I worked at a dry cleaners. It was very good.
Was that a business for them, or were they
Oh, they owned the business. That was their life. Yeah.
Was the owners were constantly there and
cleaners.
working?
Oh, yeah. They were there 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the income from that company was really driven by them being there and running it
all the time, and until the day they sold it, and then they could go off and live the life they wanted. That's where they were.
And then they became investors, probably because they sold the money, or sold a business, hopefully for a good chunk of change.
Mhm.
And they
Probably.
did. You said they did
They
sell.
did.
it?
They
Yeah.
did. They're living a
So
fabulous
they
life.
worked.
Yeah.
They worked it, and that's kind of
They
how
did.
you have to do. Is you have to work the E and the S. Is it
Employee,
self-employed?
self-employed.
Yeah, E and
business
S,
owner,
right? So
investor.
employed and the self-employed quadrants, you have
Mhm.
to work those in order to try to become a business owner or an investor.
Mhm.
That's where you generate the income so that you can become a business owner or an investor. But the tricky part is a lot of people think they're going to become an entrepreneur, and they're actually buying a job because they're buying a company that requires a lot of work. The key you can tell is if you leave,
Mhm.
can you leave for 6 months or a year at a time and the business still generate money?
Yeah. Can you separate yourself from the business?
Then that's a
essentially?
business.
Yeah.
If you can't leave for a week or two without crap hitting the fan, you own a job and you're self-employed.
I don't want that one.
Robert Diedrich, I think, the guy who runs, it's like a funny video. What's it? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like always on. It's just funny videos play all the time. But he owns this. It's a company, and he owns DC shoe brand or whatever too. And he has been getting more into entrepreneurship. He was kind of just a talk show host, funny guy, and a show host. He wasn't really a business owner yet, besides his own brand merch, whatever. But now he's starting to build businesses, and he's realized he built his first business with a 9-figure exit. So it's still a huge business he built and sold, made a ton of money. But he's realizing now that he has to be able to separate himself from these businesses he's building. Otherwise, these businesses rely on him more, and now it's a job. And he's not really building a business, because your hope in a business is that you're building it so it's passive eventually, and so that you don't have to work as much as an employee or a self-employed. Whereas he's building these businesses where they're surrounded around him and his personal brand. And now he has to stay there and work even when he sells them just to keep the business going.
Right. So you brought up passive income. So the difference between passive income and earned income is important to know. Passive income is money that's just going to come in whether you work or not.
Mm.
And that's the money we all want to get to.
Yes.
Mhm.
Most of us don't have that unless our parents gave us a bunch of money, right? Earned income is the pay that we get by showing up to a job and getting that money because we're paid a salary and we've earned it. And the other thing is taxes. You're taxed the most on earned income. That's the highest tax rate. It doesn't matter how much you make. You could be making $100,000 a year or $500,000 a year as a doctor. That earned income is going to be at a really high tax rate. It's a little bit tiered, right? So if you make a little more, you pay a little bit more as a percentage. But in general, earned income is the highest. The next highest is self-employed income, because you still have to pay taxes on your profits as a self-employed person. But then the smallest amount of taxes you pay is through business income, because there's so many write-offs, and that's a real thing. You can deduct so many expenses when you own a business. And then the least amount of taxes is as a passive investor. The reason why is the government has incentivized our economy so that investors are incentivized to put that money back in the economy to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has money, they want to put that money back in the economy, and then they'll tax it at the smallest amount possible, as low as 15% for capital gains.
Like a little gift with purchase.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you know what? It works in the US because when people make money, they want to put it back in the economy, and it keeps the machine running.
Yeah.
There are some economies in Asia where people don't want to invest their money. They just put it in savings, and they have a high savings rate, but they're saving too much and they're not putting enough in the economy, so the economy doesn't fuel.
Yeah. And one of the things about investing is that the money that you make, you're not always making. So you have to actually realize gains, or basically sell something and make a profit to pay taxes on that money. But people who invest a lot of the times, let's say you put $100,000 and you want to buy some stocks with it, and the stocks go up in value, but you don't sell the stocks. You technically made money, but you didn't sell anything. You didn't actually make a profit, so you're not paying taxes. And that's one of the best ways to make money without
on paper
paying taxes.
Because you don't pay the taxes till you actually make your profits, take them home.
Yeah.
So Warren Buffett's strategy is buy great businesses and hold them a long time, because you don't pay any taxes until you decide to sell them. So now as we get to the B, we've talked about earned income, we've talked about self-employed income, we've talked about owning a business. now the most favorite quadrant of myself, and I think Robert Kiyosaki, is the investment quadrant. So the biggest thing that I think the biggest tool that we have in this I category is retirement accounts, IRAs.
Mm-hmm.
And what an IRA is, basically the government is saying you can save money, put it away, and we won't tax you on that money.
It's very nice of them.
Up to a certain level, yes. So IRAs are not fun to talk about. I will just say they are the least. Nobody listening right now, everyone probably just turn the podcast off once we started talking about IRAs. I don't know why that is. Why do you think that is?
Because saving money and investing it can just be boring, right?
I think when I was growing up, it was very gauche to talk about money. So there's a little pushback, I think, of I don't even want to talk about money. I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah,
it feels like, oh.
And usually it's a little bit like talking about, a little private information. It's some of those things people don't want to really open up on.
It's kind of embedded into our culture. You don't really talk about how much money you make.
And also, I think IRAs are boring. You get into tax law. So I'm just going to dumb it down a few key things. You can only invest $6,000 a year in an IRA. Once that year passes, you can't come back and invest that $6,000. So if you start when you're 20, you have 10 and instead of 30, you have 10 years of $6,000 you could put away, $60,000 you could start building your account. If you start when you're 30, you miss those 10 years. You can't go back. The government just says every year you have a deadline.
Mm-hmm.
You can either invest or not. And then the beauty about it is once you put that money away, if it's a Roth IRA, it will grow tax-free. So let me just put that out there. If you put $5,000 a year for 30 years away into a commercial real estate like Neighborhood Ventures, and it grows 12% a year compounded, in 30 years, you'll have $1.35 million if that does 12% a year.
And that's not boring. That's a very sexy number.
So breaking
that
down, you've put in $150
mm-hmm.
and you've gained $1.2 million.
I feel good about that.
And that $1.2 million,
mm-hmm.
you pay no taxes on.
And usually, without an IRA, you'd probably pay around $300,000 in taxes, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But with a Roth IRA, you're paying zero.
You pay zero on the gains. Yep.
But you can't access that money until you're 55 and a half? 70?
You can start accessing some in your 60s, but to get the full benefit, I believe it's 69 and a half. And they keep moving it. But you want to just put it away for a long time. So we have investors who are in their 70s who still aren't touching their Roth IRA. It's still growing for them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still investing.
Yeah.
But it's a huge tax advantage to get in that I category is to start thinking about how do I use my IRA? If you're not going to do anything else this year, so we just got through with New Year's resolutions. If you're not going to do anything else this year financially, start an IRA
mm-hmm.
and invest $6,000 a year this year and get it going. That's all I'm asking.
I feel like 6,000 is manageable. Yeah. I like that there's a limit. It's only 6,000.
Yeah.
I'd put more if I could.
So what is that per month?
Oh,
math. It's like $500.
Yeah.
What is I just saw this number. Average car payment is $499 in the U.S. Average car payment.
Not my car.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you walk our scenario through, you can either buy a car, $500 a month, and in 5 years that car is going to be worth zero.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Or you can start investing $500 a month right now, and then when you retire, you have $1.3 million. So your choice. You can either have $1 million, or you can have a car right now. So
tough
it's the
choice.
same.
Take the million.
It's a tough choice.
And look, I just have to keep visualizing.
But nobody
who
does
am I
it.
going to be at 70? How fabulous I'll be at 70 with that million.
Yeah. Well, if you want to be a golden girl,
I will 100% be a golden girl.
Which golden girl are you?
Oh, I'm going to be a blend of all of them.
No.
There's different types.
Oh.
No, Betty?
Of golden girls?
Betty White. What's her name on the show?
Rose Nyland. Yes, from St. Olaf.
I'm just going to say I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
I think he's Dorothy.
I will educate you later.
I think he's Dorothy.
Yes, you could be Dorothy.
Dorothy.
Do you want to be Blanche?
we won't go there.
At least I'm not melatonin.
But Betty White passed away a couple weeks ago.
She made it to 99.
You should watch a couple Golden Girls episodes if you haven't.
That's the lifestyle you want. That is what you are working towards. Every time you put that 6,000 in,
yes,
I'm going to be Dorothy. It's coming.
If you want to be a golden girl, you got to start investing with your IRA.